Good morning, everyone. Yeah, good morning. What a great day, right? Connie. We're all so lucky to be here. We just came back from Baltimore, and they have weather like this right now, I guess 10 times a year, and they were just going crazy. It was amazing. And Annette and I were like, well, this is kind of like what it's like, most of the time. So sorry. I guess the humidity and the bugs are just incredible there. They dart in and dart out, and if they work in the yard, they're just like sweating out. So, welcome everyone. Jim DeFontis, president of the board, and on behalf of the board, the staff, and the ministry, want to welcome all of you to Unity of Tustin, where we believe in one God, one heart, and many paths. I have a number of announcements today, so I'm going to read them to stay on script, or it'll take longer. So first, we want to welcome Ray Davis back. It's been about 3 years since we've had him, and we're so fortunate. We're going to have a great musical experience today. Want to remind everyone, if you've been vaccinated, fully vaccinated, and you're about 2 weeks out, you're welcome to take your mask off. And if not, we ask that you leave your mask on. Healing letter, a couple of announcements on activity. The healing letters of Myrtle Fillmore began last Thursday online with Reverend Blair and our own Don Teeters. And the class will continue for 2 more Thursday nights. The class is a $10 fee plus, but of course, no one will be turned away. And you're welcome to join this coming Thursday. And as those of you who are longtime Unity members know, Myrtle Fillmore's letter are like the cornerstone of a lot of the metaphysical thinking and ideas and teachings that we have. So this is a very important class. Reverend Blair is an expert at it, as is Don Teeters, and I think you'll enjoy joining. Also, we're in Unity of Tustin has joined with our Buddhist minister and teacher, Craig Phillips. And on Wednesday nights at 7:30, we will be able to join his Tao tribe. So we're integrating the two groups. We're asking for a $10 love donation, but of course no one will be turned away. As you know, meditation is kind of a keystone to our practice here at Unity. And Craig, of course, is an expert at Dharma talk and meditations. And for those of you who have seen him on Sundays, it's been a wonderful experience. But his Wednesday night service is really remarkable. It's an hour and a half long for those of you who haven't done it, and we are now integrating that into part of what we're providing our people. So Wednesday nights, ongoing, 7:30, and just as soon as we can, we'll be moving it into our sanctuary. So we're very, very excited about that. Our outreach ministry needs a few people to help with next week's Sunday supper. So if you can, and you're interested, email unity@unitytustin.org or see Susan Gilmore today. If you're a member, last week, for those of you who were here, you had a community meeting over the bylaws. Annette and I weren't here, as I said. I heard it went really well. So we're hoping all of you who are members, you've received a ballot in the mail. I did. And it's asking that you vote on the bylaw change for the board election process. I voted. So do I have a show of hands? Who else has voted in here? All right. Very good. Mary Jeanne, it looks good. So I voted yes, full disclosure. So I hope that you guys vote. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask Kirk, Mary Jeanne, myself, or any members of the board. After we're through with that process, if it's ratified, we'll be able to move forward to replacing the 2 board members that will be coming off. So that'll be the next step, and that election, the new election committee will be involved with that. The MUTS, the men's group in Unity of Tustin, will be meeting outside here this Tuesday for the first time. So we're going to try to figure out how to do an on-site meeting with a Zoom for those who want to be at home. So we're going to learn, so you're going to have to bear with us, guys, if this is an abject failure. That's okay. It's the first step. What we're imagining in the future is having a TV and a camera with a computer on a roller that we can take anywhere, and we can have live meetings here and be online. So we're going to try to figure out how to do that. All right. Now from Erin, our youth and family minister, acting minister, she and her team have met, and they're just on fire. There's a lot of activity here. If Erin was here, she'd spend 35 minutes just giving you the short synopsis of what they're doing. My short synopsis is they're returning June 6th on site with the kids and families. So we're very excited about that. It will start at the 11 o'clock service. So parents, for those of you who are online, you're welcome to come bring your children and come and join us. I know a lot of the parents have been unable to join us for quite some time. So we're looking forward to that. And also, today's the 22nd, so the drum is tomorrow, 23rd. So today, on the 23rd, we're going to have a community drum circle. It's going to be facilitated by Matt Manning. And what time will that be? Aaron, are you here? What time does that start? After this service. So for those percussionists here that are interested in, the spiritual movement from drumming, we'd welcome you to stay. And then Connie would like to thank the 10 people who came to the garden cleanup day yesterday. They all worked hard. And Connie, are any of them here? Could you raise your hand if you were here yesterday? Oh my gosh, half of them are here. Thank you guys. The gardens have never looked more beautiful, ever. I've been here 25, 26 years. I don't think they've ever looked more beautiful. So thank you guys for that. And then I missed this too because we were gone, but Amy had Stone Soup performances Friday night, and there were 40 people. And as I understand it, was unbelievable. That the performance of the choir with the editing that she did with the Nat, I think it was just over the top. John, is that what you said? It was over the top? It was the bomb. John said it was the bomb. Now, I think Amy has some plans for that video, but just as soon as she's done, we'll have that on Facebook available for everyone to look at, as well as our website. But it sounded like it was just remarkable. And of course, Jean-Claude and his Elvis take was just, as always, wonderful. All right. So our order of service, now I'll get to why you're really here. So Ray is going to be providing the music. We have Jean-Claude who will be reading the daily word. Mary Jeanne will be our teacher today. And then we have on the platform Christy. So we're really happy with the changes in the movement that we're having. So we're back. Susan has been asking us, when can we do hospitality? Bill and I are talking, and we're hoping sometime in June we'll be able to come back to full hospitality for the group. So with that, I want to thank you guys all for being here, and I hand it off to my wife, Annette.
Hello. There we are. Well, it's a beautiful day, isn't it? Everyone sit back, relax, open your hearts, your minds, and breathe. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. I can feel the mighty power and the grace. I can hear the brush of angels' wings. I see glory on each face. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place.
Good morning. My name is Jean-Claude Pinto, and I'm a prayer chaplain here at Unity. And as a prayer chaplain, I get the honor of not only lighting the Christ candle, but reading the daily word. We light the Christ candle to remind us that the light of that Christ consciousness is within every one of us. The daily word today is faith. My faith keeps me focused on God. I may not be able to control what happens around me, but I am always free to choose what happens within me. My perception determines my experience. I begin with faith. I choose to see the vibrant wholeness that is present even during illness. I open my heart and mind to the harmony that I know is possible even in the midst of apparent discord. When my needs appear greater than my resources, I remind myself all supply springs from the inexhaustible well of divine substance. I am assured by remembering all situations are temporary and God is greater than every circumstance. Through my faith, I align my thoughts with the divine and believe in this truth that sets me free. Luke 7:16, scripture. If you had faith the size of a mustard seed, you could say to this mulberry tree, be uprooted and planted in the sea, and it would obey you. In oneness.
Good morning. Thank you for being with us this morning. Let's begin our service with prayer. Myrtle Fillmore, one of the founders of Unity, said, sometimes we pray to God outside of ourselves. It is God within us that frees and heals. As we begin our service today, we pray not to God outside ourselves, but within us, around us, as us. In this moment, in this beautiful garden, in the presence of our brothers and sisters in spirit, we recognize the infinite love that draws us together. We appear individual, but we are one in divine life. Our intention for this service is to be in one mind. We affirm our divinity. We affirm our oneness with God and each other.
Good morning. This song is a song of devotion, of adoration and praise, sung from the point of view of one recognizing that I am an individualized expression of the one life, the one love, the one power, and seeing that presence everywhere. This song is called My One. From the fading light of the evening to the growing glow of the day, I can perfectly sun ascends to its glory, and in beauty gives its rays, I stay surrounded. For in you I live, move, have my being. Do I love you, my one I do? There is none to love but you. There is nothing that can undo my love for you, my one. If I feel afraid for my future, or believe that no one really cares, still I'm perfectly held in your hands, my one. So whether I ascend in bright ecstasy or fall in dark despair, I'm there surrounded. For there's nowhere where your love can't find me. Do I love you, my one I do? There is none to love but you. There is nothing that can undo my love for you, my one, my one. Baruch atah Adonai, my one. Blessed are you, all living one, my one. There is nothing else to love from below to above, my one. Hear all of creation sing to my love, my one. Do I love you, my one I do? There is none to love but you. There is nothing that can undo my love for you, my one. My one, my one, my one.
Thank you, Ray. We've come to the time of meditation. So I invite those of you here and those of you watching at home to settle in your chair and take a deep breath. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable. Be present to your body and to your breath. One of the 12 powers, next month's 12 powers, is imagination. So I ask you, just for a brief time, to imagine yourself walking on a long, deserted beach. You are at peace in this time and place, walking slowly, aware of the sounds of the ocean and the birds and the breeze on your skin. As you walk, you become aware of a figure in the distance walking toward you. At first, you're curious. Who could it be? As the figure comes closer, you notice this figure is full of amazing light, beautiful and glowing. It occurs to you to be a little afraid. Is this an angel? Is this an alien? But nevertheless, you keep moving toward this figure, drawn to the beauty and the light. And gradually, you can see the figure clearly. You're astonished to realize the figure is you. This being of light and beauty is you. When you finally reach the figure, you kneel instinctively in awe. In the silence, this being has something to share with you. It might be words, or an image, or an object, or a feeling. So as you rest in the silence, receive what this being has come to offer you. So as we return to the present moment, refreshed and renewed by this encounter with our higher self, this being of beauty and light, this wise and compassionate soul, we say, thank you, God. If you'd like some paper and a pen to write down something, an insight or a feeling that you want to remember, Kathy can help you. Thank you.
Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. Lie down in that grass. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field.
Thank you, Ray. Ray learned that song just for today, so I'm just so grateful. And it's so nice to look out and actually see faces, see smiling. It's been so long. And I respect those of you that want to continue wearing masks, but it sure is nice to look at people and be able to see their expression and whether they're smiling, whether they're with me. And I picked that song today. Some of you know, those who know me, my affinity for poetry, how much I love it, how much it feeds my soul particularly. And Rumi is one of my favorites. I have a lot of favorites, but Rumi is especially one of my favorites. And that particular poem, which I'm going to read the first stanza of it right now, is something that we talk about a lot here. That's where I first heard that poem. And there's a lot there that I think it's the kind of paper that we, writing, that we know it somehow deep within us. It resonates with something deep within us. But we kind of didn't know that we knew that. There's a lot of things like that. You say to yourself, well, I didn't know I knew that, but I do know that. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. We live in a polarized world. Perhaps you've noticed. Perhaps you've noticed how polarized we've become. We don't live in Rumi's field beyond wrongdoing and right-doing. And even though we know from reading that poem that there's something, a really deep truth about it, we can get lost in the polarization that we all are kind of swimming in. So I had to ask myself, what's he talking about? What is he urging us to do here? And where is that field beyond wrongdoing and right-doing? And how do I know when I'm in it? How do I know when I'm there? It's a place beyond judgments and opinions. That much is obvious. It's a place of oneness beyond words, beyond superficial differences, even beyond moral judgments. It's also a world where we're all one. So the idea of our individuality comes into it, right? We know that most of us, many of us, all of us, see ourselves as individuals. And maybe on a good day, we include us. Now, in researching what it is, how can we get out of this? How can we figure out a way to get into that field? And I read about the Dalai Lama. And the Dalai Lama says that negative view of human nature, of being self-centered, he believes that self-centeredness represents a moral and emotional disequilibrium. Self-centered thinking is against nature, he says. The selfish way is actually destroying your own happiness. To build a world with more well-being and more in that field Rumi is talking about, the Dalai Lama says we must first acknowledge that we're part of 7 billion other people on the planet. And he's not saying, become some kind of disindividuated lump. That's not what he's suggesting. But he's saying that we can have compassion for the 7 billion other people on the planet, and they will extend compassion to us as our brothers and sisters. Our individuality is important, he says, but not to the exclusion of what connects us, what links us together. He also denies his own specialness, which can sometimes be a part of this need to be individual, to be special. He says, I am a simple Buddhist monk, and he means it. He says we also have to be open and respectful of other people's ideas and opinions. But his definition of that is to be very neutral, to remain neutral. He says, as a monk, monks are trained to ask a lot of questions and never to just say yes automatically. That's how they maintain neutral mind. And they ask everybody these questions. And His Holiness, the Dalai Lama himself, So our separation as individuals is part of what's keeping us out of Rumi's field. But there's another issue keeping us out of this place of oneness, this place where Rumi is pointing to. And it's a place that's very seductive for human beings. We're hardwired to want to be part of a group. And tribal thinking is something that once you become part of a tribe, you begin to have to think like the tribe. So the perfect illustration of this is a story that's in my book, for those of you that have read it, about Zabbatai Zevi, the false messiah of the 17th century. And I kind of have to set the stage for this a little bit. Back in Jesus' time, Jews were leaving Israel even then. But after 66 Common Era, when in Israel, the Jews in Rome had a small war. Now we know this was sort of a David and Goliath situation, right? So guess who won? The Romans. And so Jerusalem was destroyed, as was the temple. So after that point, Jews left Israel in droves. And it's called the diaspora, the Jewish diaspora, which is kind of like saying they went they left Israel, they went to all other countries. And one of the places they went to was to Europe. And in Europe, they lived in something called shtetls, which is kind of like what we would call ghettos, Jewish ghettos, shtetls. Well, their situation was not, a happy one. There were a lot of problems, serious problems. There were things called pogroms where Jews were just killed just for being Jews. So the Jewish population of Europe actually reduced by almost a third. And so the people were in a dire situation. And as often happens during a dire situation, people start looking for ways to alleviate their suffering. That's just normal. So the leaders of the Jewish church, the rabbis and the teachers, looked in the Kabbalah, looked in the Zohar, which is a book of the Kabbalah. Some of you are familiar with the Kabbalah. And the Kabbalah is the mystical teachings of Judaism. Very fascinating readings about the whole mystical nature of creation. Very interesting. Anyway, so in the Kabbalah, they discovered that there was a prediction that the Messiah would come in the year 1648. And they thought, wonderful, we're finally going to be relieved of all of our suffering, because the promise of the Messiah was to reunite everyone in Israel, to bring them back to Israel, and then all of their problems would be over. And as so often happens in these times when something appears to be, this is the answer, somebody appears to fulfill this prediction, right? So along comes Zabbatai Zevi. And Zabbatai Zevi is one of those people who was predicted to be prophetic and visionary. And later scholars wrote that possibly he was schizophrenic. But remember, that's a modern interpretation, right? That's not necessarily how, no one saw it that way in 1648. But because he appeared so gifted and because he had some of the qualities that they were looking for, and remember, these desperate times were going on. So some people started saying, he's the Savior, he's the one, he's the Messiah, he's going to bring us back to Israel. And for a while, he appeared to be fulfilling all of those things that they were looking for. Even Spinoza, who was a famous Jewish philosopher, even Spinoza started saying, yeah, maybe he's the one. Well, once this idea got going, it took off like wildfire. Even without the internet, somehow spread all over miserable shtetls in Europe. And people became so excited, they started selling their possessions. They even stopped working in the fields because they figured, why bother? We're going to be in the land of milk and honey by fall, so I don't have to do anything. We see this now as the collective delusion that it was. But imagine being in their situation, desperate for a solution, and somebody appears to come along that offers you a lifeline. The main point here is that it's the opposite of what the Dalai Lama is saying about asking questions. When you're in this tribal thinking, when you're in this tribal consciousness, you're not asking questions because you have to be in the tribe. You want this to be true so much that you hold on to it with both hands. Better not ask any questions. So, needless to say, the story of Zabbatai Zevi doesn't end well. The Sultan of Turkey finds out about all this stuff going on, and he's not about to let anybody come and put all the Jewish people back in what was by that time Palestine. A lot of this is sounding very like contemporary, like you were listening to the news. But anyway, so he has Zabbatai Zevi brought to Turkey. And he, shall we say, convinces him to convert to Islam. Now you can only imagine how devastating that must have been to all these people who gave away their stuff and stopped working in the fields. But even with that, some of these people could not let go of the idea of Zabbatai Zevi being the Savior, being the Messiah. And so they made up a story that said that Zabbatai Zevi, he didn't really convert. On the outside, he was practicing Islam, but in secret, he was practicing Judaism. And they called him the hidden Messiah. I don't know how they got around some of his teachings about, some of the idea of I'm going to bring you all back to Israel, because obviously that wasn't going to happen. But they maybe decided that it would happen sometime in the future. In fact, there are still people today, there's a sect of people today practicing Islam in their outer world, but at home they practice Judaism, all in an attempt to sort of keep this mythology, this story going, because they just could not give up the belief in the fact that Zabbatai Zevi was the Messiah. Yes, all that was a long time ago, that tribal thinking. But I have a more contemporary example of this type, the power of the group. I read about a reporter who decided that she was going to meet up with some people on the opposite side of the political divide from her. She really wanted to have a dialogue with them. She wanted to get to know them. And she figured the best way to do that was to go to one of their demonstrations. You've all seen these demonstrations on street corners, right? Where people are holding up signs and saying, vote for my candidate, whatever. So she went to one of these, and she writes that she expected to write about what she learned and how enlightening it was and how she was able to see things from their viewpoint. But she admits that's not what happened at all. She ended up writing about something completely different, because what happened was she found herself almost hypnotized by the power of standing on this street corner with these people. They were holding up signs, and people would drive by and honk honk if you like whoever, right? And so she said, as people started honking, she started realizing, this is wonderful. I'm part of this group. Even though she knew intellectually that she wasn't, there was something about it that was very enticing, very hypnotic almost. But then she goes on to say what really got her hooked was when people would drive by, and we all know that familiar hand gesture that indicates that they're not very pleased with the candidate. And she said, but that was what really hooked her. When someone drove by that wasn't with her group, she was outraged, right? And it was only later, when she sort of removed herself from the whole thing, that she was able to say, what in the world happened? How did this happen to me? Now, it took a lot of courage to do that, right? It took a lot of courage to admit that she got caught up in this. But it's just an example of the kind that we're all subject to on a certain watching yourself doing something. And we all revel in that us versus them energy. I mean, when you think about it, what else are sports teams for? You don't go there and root for both sides, right? You go there and you have your favorite and you're against somebody. It's that same kind of energy. But here's the problem. We can't be in the field beyond wrongdoing and right doing when we're in the field of us versus them. Or when we're in the field of all my tribe believes this, and I have to believe it too. Or I believe this. This is my identity. This is who I am. And if I don't believe this, who am I? Maya Angelou says it this way. You are only free when you realize you belong no place. You belong every place. No place at all. The price is high. The reward is great. This is another way of saying you belong to yourself first, which means you approve and admire yourself. Now, I realize this sounds completely paradoxical to what I said earlier about self-centered thinking, but there's a big difference between being self-centered and being self-possessed, about being true to yourself. That's when true belonging can happen, not this hypnotic power of the tribe or groupthink. So here's how I came to actually become myself, fully myself. It's the gateway to Rumi's field, as counterintuitive as that sounds. Like most of you, maybe, or at least me, I wasn't raised to think real highly of myself. I remember in junior high school, one of the worst things someone could do would be to brag about themselves. And bragging could even be, gee, I did a good job on that or whatever. Oh no, you could only say bad things about yourself. Otherwise everything was bragging. So I knew I needed to do a lot of remedial work on this issue. So I got that book by Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life, right? Wonderful book, like a foreign language to me. I had never heard any of those things in there. There's an exercise in there where you look in the mirror and you say, I love you to yourself. Well, now if you have my personality, you're probably going, oh, brother. So I had to put that one aside. So I picked the one that says, I approve of myself. So I got a notebook, one of those thick ones, and I wrote both sides, filled the whole thing. I approve of myself. And another thing she suggests, and I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. So I would go out walking, and I would say, I approve of myself. I approve of myself. Now, I didn't say it out loud because I didn't think people would think that was very sane. But I spent a lot of time on this. And I must tell you, as much as I was totally skeptical, to say the least, of Louise Hay and her methods, that gradually the voice that was saying, who do you think you are? You all know the voice, right? Who do you think you are? I replaced it with the voice that was saying, I approve of myself. I'm not gone, the other voice, but there was more balance. There was less, my subconscious was programmed a little bit differently. And of course, Maya Angelou goes on to say, once you approve of yourself, then you belong to yourself and not to a particular group or place. So you get to decide what's right and wrong for you. Sometimes it's harder to be your own judge than it is to give that power away to somebody else. But this is partly what we're talking about, is the power to be yourself, to be in your own truth. If you're inclined to think these ideas are hopelessly misguided or naive, I invite you to actually think about some of the things that you are attached to, some of the dogmas, some of the beliefs, some of the need to be right that are pretty ingrained in you. It might not seem all that helpful, some of those beliefs and opinions. Truth with a capital T requires constant investigation and evaluation, not blind faith to any ideology. An unquestioning reliance on authority is dangerous, says the Dalai Lama, because a dogmatic, prejudiced worldview makes objective investigation impossible. It seems we're hardwired to be part of a group, to participate in groupthink, to need the hit we get from being an insider. But it's useful to remember that in order for you to be right, somebody else has to be wrong. And having someone against you is essential to this dynamic. So how do you get to that place beyond wrongdoing and right doing? It's a state of consciousness for sure. And shifting consciousness, or raising consciousness, as we used to say in the 70s, requires work. It doesn't just happen. It requires the spiritual practices we teach here at Unity. Prayer and meditation, spiritual study, books and classes, commitment to spiritual community, including financial giving and selfless service. It also requires something that we used to call shadow work, knowing yourself, looking at what lens you're looking at the world through, not so you can become attached to it, but because so you can transcend it. And part of that foundational work here has been the Enneagram. A lot of people here have studied the Enneagram. It's so helpful to knowing, well, that's me, that's what I do, and being able then to make a different choice. I hope in January, which was the time that we normally would offer that class, we'll do that again this year, because the Enneagram, most people you talk to that have taken the Enneagram will say it was sort of a life-changing thing for them. So before we close, let's read Rumi's whole poem this time, because there's 2 verses, and the second verse is especially meaningful. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the door sill where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep. Jesus said that he came so that we could live more abundantly, so that we could live in that field beyond wrongdoing and right doing. Don't go back to sleep. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Jeanne. Thank you, Mary Jeanne. We've come to the time of giving our tithes and our offerings. But first, before we do that, we want to welcome anyone who's here for the very first time. Whoever you are and wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. We're so happy you found us. We invite you to take a walk through the gardens after the service and let us know if you have any questions. We'd love to connect with you. So if there is anyone who is here for the very first time, if you'd be willing to raise your hand, Kathy has a welcome packet for you. Is there anyone here today? Also, for those of you who are joining us online, if you're new with us today, if you'll send an email with us to unity@unitytustin.org, we will also send you some welcome information. So thank you and welcome so much for being here today. We do consider you a guest, so it is not necessary for you to participate in today's love offering. But at Unity, we acknowledge that God is our source, and it's a part of our spiritual practice to give back to that place which feeds us spiritually. You know, as I've worked in the accounting office for these last 6 months, it's been extremely gratifying to see the generosity that many of our community members have given from their hearts, and those love offerings and tithes have really sustained us during the pandemic. So we thank you so much for your generosity. And we invite everyone to continue to participate in that flow of generosity today. You can leave your love offering over in the giving box. You can also, if you'd like to give by credit card, you can do so at our little kiosk over there. And of course, you can also mail in your love offerings at any time. So now, let us say our love offering blessing together. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I am, all that I give, and all that I receive. And now Ray has another gift for us.
That was a beautiful talk. Oh my gosh, I've got stuff to meditate on. This is wonderful. It is so good to be here, by the way. I had mentioned this earlier. It's good to see your faces. Y'all look cute. Yeah, you look lovely. And it's and nothing better than these gardens. Oh my gosh, Lori and I have memories. We talk about this from time to time. Just coming through the gardens and having a chance to meditate, and you've got the labyrinth and everything. I mean, this is a cool setup. It's all right. Yeah. So the song I'm going to present to you at this point is called Compassion. And it is presents little scenarios when maybe instead of offering a bit of advice, the best thing to do is to simply be in the silence and know the best about the person I'm with. Because goodness gracious, I'm going to need the same kind of treatment for my own self. This is called compassion. Tea one afternoon, she cried and cried so much that soon tea was tepid and forgotten. The fear said, This time I think he's gone for good. So in my mind I'm wondering, should I say this or that or not? Then suddenly the silence, right when everything was quiet, I knew what was needed. Just love and compassion. Up on the second ring, he mumbled before confessing he was totally besotted. The fear moaned, he's only toying with my heart. So now I'm wondering how to start to unstop a mind that's clotted. Then in the silence, right when everything was quiet, I knew what was needed. Just love and compassion. Fear, binding, blinding fear. Fear no longer speaks to me. Oh no, it's love, love right now and here, that clearly covers all I see. I see you now, I see true now. All is well. Forgot to mail the check today. Tomorrow someone's rightful pay will not be in their possession. Sometimes I feel like such a simple-minded fool. Maybe I should go back to school to pursue some safe profession. But in the silence, right here where everything is quiet, I know what is needed. Just love and compassion. Just love and compassion. Compassion. It's just love and compassion. Love and compassion. Talking about love, love and compassion.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Ray. So in closing today, just want to remind you that Jim DeFontis, our board president, will be available at the table at the back to answer any questions that any of you might have. John Claude and any other prayer chaplains that are here with us today will be at the entrance to the meditation gardens. If any of you want to have a chance to just hold sacred space or hold anything in prayer. You may also leave prayer requests in the box with our love offerings, and our prayer chaplains will hold those in prayer as well. So let us close our service today with our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. So go forth this week and meet one another in the field.